Thank you so much for joining us on the latest SVG Technology in Action webinar. My name is Brandon Costa. I'm Director of Digital here at the Sports Video Group. Have a fantastic topic and a really talented group of individuals here to chew on that topic for you here today in the webinar. We're going to be talking about cloud-based technologies and how they affect everyone from sports teams to sports leagues to broadcasters. We're calling the show today From the Field to the Cloud, how CBS Sports, the New England Patriots, the Sun Belt Conference, and the Tennessee Titans have tackled remote production both in 2020 and today here into 2021. We thank you so much for joining us here in the show today. We're coming to you live here on the webinar platform. Please send along your questions using the Q&A function that you see at the bottom of your screen. We will have a full live interactive Q&A after our first initial talk here, so stay tuned for that throughout. Send those questions along as we go, and we'll collect them and we'll get these guys involved to answer some of your questions toward the latter portion of the program. We'll take about an hour today, and we really appreciate you joining us for the program. I wanted to introduce you to our esteemed group of panelists. Wave as I introduce you, but we'll see some graphics at the bottom of the screen for you as well to kind of ID throughout. We're joined by Travis Llewellyn. He's Associate Commissioner of Football and Broadcasting at the Sun Belt Conference. We are also joined by Christopher Cruz. He's Director of Media Services for CBS Sports, coming fresh off of the Super Bowl. Chris, thanks so much. Hope you've caught up on sleep, and thanks so much for being here. We're also joined by Brian Myers. He is Director of Broadcast Technology and Production for the Tennessee Titans. And Chris Gogolos is videographer and associate producer for the New England Patriots. Gentlemen, thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate you taking the time. I know a lot of you are just kind of, well, Travis, you're still in neck deep in a very busy academic year, but for everyone else, football season coming to a close. So Brian and Chris, thanks for being here. Christopher, I'm sure you're moving on to the next big thing, but you're coming right off a Super Bowl. We really appreciate you gentlemen being here. Thanks so much. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, of course. We're talking about cloud-based productions today, and kind of the unifying theme around all of you guys is that you kind of work off of a similar system, that being the Sony C platform. I kind of wanted to get, before we dive into your individual case studies, quick show of hands, cloud-based workflow, this kind of things that we're going to be talking about today. A lot of people were kind of pushed off the cliff into that deep end of the pool, courtesy of the pandemic in 2020. But by show of hands, how many of you were already working in this kind of a workflow prior to the pandemic? Okay, so we got Chris, Brian, Travis. Okay, Chris, from the Patriots, this is a relatively new thing for you guys?
Yeah, we just picked it up this year, and it's been great so far.
Okay, great. So when we get to you and your portion, it'll be really interesting to hear how you guys kind of made that initial leap and how that's kind of impacted your work here going forward. But Travis, why don't we start with you? When you're working from a conference perspective, you're obviously working to, I guess your ultimate goal is to make things as efficient as possible and unified as possible for every one of your member institutions. So take us inside your workflow and how it helps not only conference office, but all the schools that call themselves Sun Belt schools, how it helps everyone work together.
Yeah, so we actually really got started with the C Cloud in the 2019-2020 academic year. And for us, it was actually to assist our schools with their ESPN Plus productions, right? So we have a lot of school productions, over 500, I think, that academic year. And what we were trying to do is have one resource, one place to go where you could get your headshots, for you want to do your team lineups, starting lineups, one place for your Excel sheets for Ross expression, one place to upload your melts, game footage, everything there to be for you. So it really worked well because we had one place to go. And then with the pandemic, we really expanded our C Cloud offerings for our membership. So with the pandemic, teams were not traveling as much, limited sideline access in terms of photographers, videographers. So really our communications directors were asking us, what can we do to service the media? So we were actually able to create basically in the C Cloud, make a media box for every week of football, right? So we could have up to 10 football games on a Saturday, and 5 if it's a conference weekend. And so you were able to go into that, provide one link to the media. You're able to get photos, a melt, and a full game copy for every game in the Sun Belt the entire year. So it really helped out our membership in terms of you're not traveling media, you're not traveling videographers, photographers, but you were still able to have access to all the content, and so were media as well.
Yeah. You guys in collegiate athletics very rarely get a chance to take a stop and take a breath and then something like the pandemic hit, where you found more time than you ever could have imagined that you'd wanted. Not time that you wanted by any stretch of the imagination. You wanted spring sports to be playing. You wanted to be able to go into the fall. But what was there a silver lining there? Was there an opportunity for you guys to maybe rethink and reimagine some workflows or some communications during that time when live collegiate athletics kind of came to a halt?
I think it really, for us, it was, how do we get more creative? How do we find different avenues and access points in order to get content and make it as easy as possible for people to get the things that they need in order to do their job. That was really what was important to us, and to be, a membership organization in order to service our membership.
Awesome. All right, Travis. Well, thanks a lot for the insight there. Really appreciate it. Want to move on over to Christopher Cruz from CBS Sports. Chris, your hand was up when you said that you guys have been using cloud-based workflows for a while, and it's certainly become pretty common across many, many major broadcasters. Take us inside on how it's a part of CBS Sports' workflows right now.
Well, we started out with not even a need for it, right? So we kind of all production remote into the broadcast center, didn't need it, and then Final Four, Minneapolis, we were getting these small schools trying to send us footage. And we're like, well, how the hell are we going to do this? Can't do it over the line, right? Basement video, can't feed it out. So I had remembered that Frank and David had talked to us about C. I dismissed it completely, by the way. And they were like, why don't you try this product? So, of course, first thing I did was call David, hey, can you hook me up with this account? Yada, yada. He hooked it up. We sent out these links to these schools for file requests, and boom, we got footage in, right? And then the legend just kind of grew there of what you can do with the product, which is still probably underutilized at CBS. There's so many bells and whistles that you can use from it. But the evolution came very fast and very swift. We started out with just to and from, right? Acquisition and distribution. And then it morphed into what we're using it today pretty much for our whole platform, and really saved our butt during the pandemic, which I can go into a little bit later, but by all means.
Yeah, for sure. And you got a little bit of a presentation you'd like to show us to kind of get us rolling through?
Yeah, I'm fresh off Super Bowl, lack of sleep, and share my screen. Starring me, Chris Cruz, Director of Media Services, CBS Sports, right? The guy I told you about, Frank, I'll get it done, Ripa, trying to sell me stuff I don't need, but clearly I needed it. Man's a smart guy. And David, the Dr. Rosen, smart guy, totally got me up and running, exactly what I needed to get through this pandemic and our needs starting back in Minneapolis 2019 for Final Four. So where did this crazy journey begin? Minneapolis, I'm there on a truck. I've got your 16th seed schools trying to send us footage, these little MP4s or cell phone videos, and well, how the heck do we do that? Well, sure enough, Sony C was our answer to that problem. Sent out file requests, got footages into the trucks, downloaded onto the prem storage, made it editable. Created links for the final product, right? Our edited pieces, sent it out to remote AD, sent it back to the schools for them to look at. And that's where this baby was born for us. And then all of a sudden the buildup, the big three came on, right? Just like how you got thrown onto our laps here, take on soccer, the big three. Next thing you know, CBS was covering it. Well, how the heck do we figure this out? We've got nothing but remote edits. This is prior to the pandemic, right? Where these were all post houses. All the footage was local to BC. How do we get game clips? How do we get interviews? How do we get all that? And sure enough, Frank and David hooked me up. Workspaces, this is how you do that. Send links, proxy files, live session, video review, which are all fantastic tools built in to C that allow you to collaborate, build pieces together, send it out for QC review and approve, the whole process there, right? So huge solution. Little tidbit here. I have Ice Cube's personal email. I had to send him stuff for actual review and approval, right? And let me tell you something. This guy is on top of his game. When I tell you, he grinds this thing down to every second on how he wants it. The man is a visionary and good at what he does. So no wonder why he's so successful. But that's my little claim to fame, right? And then here's the twist, right? The plot thickens. COVID-19. CBS was set to air all these games live, right? The whole tournament. Well, what are we going to do with all this dead airtime? And no broadcast center to edit from. Fortunate for us, Sony C came and saved the day. We restored a bunch of legacy games, right? 79 Final Four, Jordan, Bird versus Magic versus Bird. All these kind of old legacy stuff that we cut together what's called a standby show. Well, there's no edit systems in the broadcast center. So we uploaded to C in the cloud, sent out links to our editors who had remote suites. They downloaded the content. You're talking It was a terabyte a day for just one edit. We had like 7, 8 edits going. So let's call it 10 terabytes a day of footage going up and down, being edited, final pieces cut, re-uploaded for QC, back downloaded to then put through our master control for air, right? So you're talking crazy, crazy workflow, 3 a.m., making sure stuff passes QC, whether it's audio or visual. And we wouldn't have been able to put all that stuff, which you guys hopefully saw and appreciated the content we were able to fill with all that airtime for March Madness, right? So the regular tournament and Final Four. And that's where we're at and how we use it today. So that's our Sony C's hero ending, right? I mean, they brought us out. We got March Madness, all the different legacy games on the air. And I am so thankful for it because I don't see how we would have done it otherwise. So the next thing is the end, right? Well, we don't know. I mean, what's next? What are we going to do? I don't know. But I'm sure as heck sure that Frank and David will find something for me to utilize there.
Nice, nice. Well, fantastic run through. Really appreciate it. And we'll definitely get the chance to dive into how you guys integrate some of these workflows, how they've helped your work, how they've helped you work with some external clients, as you mentioned, tons of schools that are coming in through potentially in the NCAA tournament, all that. Really appreciate that, Chris. We're going to get the team's perspectives now, and I think it's awesome that we have a nice balance of one and Brian, you and the Titans, who have been doing cloud-based workflows like this for a little bit, and Chris, you and your team at the Patriots being new, relatively new to these kinds of workflows. So why don't we start with Brian? Take us inside life in Nashville right now and how you initially got started to this back pre-pandemic in that world that we used to live in a long time ago. How did you guys initially get involved in this? How has it reshaped how you guys operate internally, and how it ended up being a huge, huge decision once the pandemic did hit?
Yeah, the pandemic really changed a lot, but it started in the 2019 season for us. We actually had a problematic solution that we needed to find, and it was we needed to build up and get all of our footage from the scrum and the press conferences on the road games up to our digital and social platforms as fast as we possibly could. And Sony Sleep became that solution for us. It was kind of like, necessity driving invention, and we were able to, use our FS7s and attach the cellular MiFi to that, and then upload it directly back to our producers and editors who were here in Nashville during those road games, since they don't have time to, download those cards or even get the press conferences and those scrum interview from the media availability, again, back in the 2019 season, up and onto our platforms as fast as we possibly could, so we could, get that interaction and get them onto our platform. So that's where we actually started leaning into Sony C and diving more into cloud media solutions. And as time progressed, and then once the pandemic hit, I think that's when we started to really unravel what could Sony C do for us long term. And as we pushed all of our editors from our training facility to the remote environments at home, it's like we need to be able to show project files, and we ended up putting our entire 100 terabyte storage system into the Sony C cloud, and now we're sharing all of our project files. All of our review workflow is happening there instead of us using actually 3 different type of programs. We're using, the Dropbox solutions, et cetera, to, facilitate this. And it really made it simplistic to be under one kind of roof as we, managed our workflow. And our editors are fantastic. Our producers are great. And you'll see this in the clip, one of that we're about to roll. Steve Wazinski, one of our producers, helped me make this. And it kind of shows all of the content that we've been producing throughout this past 2020 season, but it also shows that everything on this was approved, shot, in the COVID world and relations that we could, but then built out and QC'd completely in the cloud, which really helped our workflow build up.
Yeah, I think pandemic or not, I think a lot of people, Chris was mentioned it before we got on the broadcast here. Pandemic or not, you guys put together some really killer content this year, and I think that's a credit to you and your organization and the people you work with, like Surf and David and everyone. I know, really, really talented group that you have over there, and the fact that this workflow was able to keep you guys not just keeping the boat afloat, but keeping the ship flying, really, at a time when you were coming off of dare I say it, surprising run to the AFC Championship game the year before.
True.
So there was a lot of hype around this team, and you didn't want to lose that, despite the fact that you couldn't have fans at pregame practice or preseason practices or preseason games to build that hype. You needed to be able to do this stuff.
It was very complicated, and I'm sure Chris can attest to this as well. We were extremely limited by just the NFL rules and how many people we could actually have on the field. So we would have Matt Unger was our designated road on field photographer or videographer for this aspect, and he would shoot everything with an FS7, and that would be sitting back where both Mike Dool, our video content manager, would be piecing that together and building out content that would go out on the digital platforms. And then Nate Bain, leading our social media team, would be pulling that and distributing to Twitter and to Instagram, just to keep everything going. And I think that was the biggest driving point for us too. It's how can we maintain the largest possible presence in a world where now we've gone from 4 on-field shooters for a road game to 1, and then even at a home game we increased to 2. So it's extremely tough. We're using opt zone access, which is kind of like the row 1 allowable space for our shooters to be, and it's good, but it's a struggle when you only have a minimum content coming back to you that you can actually grow this from and still put out content that's very engaging from a social and digital perspective. But yeah, Surf and David, testament to them on definitely coming up with a new content plan on how we can re-engage and push out as strongly as we possibly could and keep the presence and roll into an AFC South championship year for us, first time since 2008. So it was really big.
Yeah, very, very cool. Well, let's take a look at a little bit of a flavor of some of the Tennessee Titans content from this year.
You believe in
Ryan Tannehill, A.J. Brown, Derrick Henry with a stiff arm, throws a man down.
I believe in grinding.
Tennessee Titans support the movement and want to be a part of positive change.
If a team can't use heat misses, what would they be?
Henry, oh my! Great stiff arm! Hey. Oh, have some of that! Oh!
I done came from rags all the way to riches. Not even
Tannehill, throw right side, one for Brown in the end zone, one hand!
You can keep your bed. You believe in
It sure feels good to have football back in Nashville. Tough. Tennessee tough.
Yeah! You know what time it is?
All right, awesome. Really cool stuff. Appreciate you sharing that with us, Brian. And again, congrats to you and everyone at the team on a very successful content year. Chris, wanted to shift gears to you. Similar pain points that Brian was kind of talking about as far as being able to build hype preseason without having those tactile opportunities of being able to bring fans into preseason games, practices, fan events and things like that, made content and digital content all that much more important. It was a wild offseason for everyone in the NFL, where a lot of people were rethinking things, trying to do live draft shows from home for the first time ever. And this was your opportunity to make a dive into something new like this. So can you walk us through what it was like internally in your team, taking this opportunity to make the jump into the cloud?
Yeah, well, to be honest, we've been looking at some solution like this for a while, and mostly for live production on game day, where we were struggling with having a bunch of people running cards back and forth, photographers, videographers. We would try and text them, we'd try and Slack them. We would have some lossless, stuff through text there. We'd have files that wouldn't upload because of everyone that was in the stadium at the time last year or 2 years ago now. So this year, we were really looking into the solution that Sony C provides, where we can shoot it with an F55. It goes directly up to the cloud, and then an editor on the other side can turn something for social. And our main focus with this one was social for Instagram stories and Snapchat stories, and eventually fleets when they showed up. But we have a really quick workflow that allows us to then shoot it, get it up to the cloud, and then someone on the other side, usually a social media manager and editor, could put together stories. We did also things for arrivals, was great to get that instead of having to pull a card, download it, and then upload it to anywhere else, get it approved, and then had it come back to us. So it was really easy to be able to use it in the very, very, very limited stages for us. We're in the beginning stage of using C. So it's actually been great to hear all the different perspectives that we can pull from and use in the future. So again, basic for us, but Instagram stories and very quick turn things became so much easier because we had the C program.
Yeah, and before we throw to your clip here, tell us a little bit about the content plan this year. You guys had an interesting story in that you had a new quarterback in Cam Newton, and you're kind of reframing the franchise in a post Brady world, if you will. How did these workflows give you the opportunity to kind of tell the story of this next generation of Patriots football?
Yeah, well, I guess the best thing was that our stuff was going up first, and because we were able to get it back so quickly that when people searched for things like Cam Newton or Patriots or whatnot and wanted to know the story about us, our stuff was getting turned quickly because we were able to send it up to the cloud and then had someone on the other side editing it and sending it out right away, either a clip from practice or something that happened during the game. It was best served because we were able to move so quickly with it.
Nice, nice. Well, let's take a look at some of the work that the Patriots did this year during this season. All right, very cool. Really appreciate you sharing that, Chris. Thank you, all of you, for kind of giving us a little inside look at how cloud-based workflows, specifically Sony C, has helped you in this challenging year and certainly beyond. As we talk about cloud-based workflows, I certainly want to, it wouldn't be SVG if we talked about the live element of things here. Obviously, this does tremendous things for back-end workflows, like we said, getting it from the camera to the cloud so that people can use it to build post-production elements, social content, as a lot of you have talked about. But in terms of live, and Christopher Cruz, we'll start with you in terms of CBS Sports. You mentioned how important this ended up being towards the Final Four, and we have another NCAA tournament tipping off any day here now, another Final Four to come. It'll be a unique one, but from a back end, you're still going to be dealing with 64, 65 teams that you're potentially going to be getting content from. I wonder if you talk about how these cloud-based workflows are impacting live productions and how they are making people who maybe they're in trucks, maybe they're at home, maybe it's a hybrid now, how this kind of centralized, uniform, cloud-based workflow helps make live productions even better than they were before. How's it helping with the Final Four?
So it was a really good term you used, hybrid, right? So a lot of that, as we're all trying to do in the broadcast world, is eliminate our footprint on the field, right? Because that builds up costs. And how do you save money? So our thing is we started spinning up edits in the cloud. We started limiting our edits at the field and having them either in the broadcast center or in the cloud. And Sony C is going to continue to help us do that. As we were already doing it before, we were just having a much bigger footprint on the field location, right? So Final Four this year, we're still going to have the same amount of edits, but now since our content will be in the cloud, we can globalize that more, and we can have actual editors work from home. We can have editors work from the broadcast center, and then we can have editors work in the cloud. And that's actually what we did for our Super Bowl that we just had, is we had all these different edit locations, but yet the footage was centralized. So you want to talk about, to Chris's point, with the turnaround time, maximum turnaround time, right? I mean, you could just turn this stuff out, boom, boom, done, right? So, and then we also use it for our review and approve. So we're going to continue to do that at Final Four, where acquire all of our content from various platforms, outside edit houses, our own edits, broadcast center, send that stuff back up, out for review for any producer, because we're not going to travel our whole slew of producers to the Final Four. Send out the links. Oh, this piece is good. Boom. It's not. Edit notes here, which is, again, another collaboration tool within Sony C, and send it back and give me another copy, V2, and all that kind of stuff. So we're really looking forward to it. We cracked the surface last Final Four, but this Final Four, we plan on even more, enhancing it even more, and using more of those collaboration tools. There's something called Live Session in there that is a really cool tool that we used for last March Madness. Was a production person and an editor can watch the same thing, frame accurate, as they're cutting their pieces, whether it be a standby show, a package, an interview, And it's just a easy way of kind of the solution for how do you see the same thing at the same time to cut the piece. So we're really excited, looking forward to it. The pandemic happened, but I believe with the tools we have, we overcame it with ease.
Nice. Travis, from your perspective, for a collegiate conference, when you guys strike these deals with like an ESPN Plus or something like that, it's usually there's a lot of scale there. You're talking about hundreds of live games that end up getting live streamed. So how important is it to have something that is just reliable and consistent and it's easy to work with?
Well, it's also great to give to our partner for a linear broadcast games as well.
Mm-hmm.
So with ESPN, Thursday, Friday, Saturday night games is that we're able to go, hey, we have our entire melt package available to you. We have full games available to you. You don't have to go digging around for it, so they can create a better product as well. The really nice part too is I'll use basketball season as an example that's getting grinded out right now. Is that let's just say for instance, Coastal Carolina is producing a game this weekend. They played Georgia Southern earlier in the year. Hey, they had the last second shot. They can grab the melt. It's already on the cloud. And the one really nice thing about C Cloud is I want to say is that you're able to scrub through the footage too. You don't have to download the whole content. You can look at it. You can see what you want. And you can even clip off. Like just say you want the last 15 seconds of like a full game copy. You can clip it, download that. It makes it so efficient when you're trying to produce these games, especially for these people on campus, who might be short staffed right now, that they can be more efficient with their time, with their download, with what they're downloading, and they know exactly what they're looking for as well.
Yeah, no, that's really, really helpful. Brian, I'll start with you from the team's perspective. You guys were doing a lot of live stuff for social. I think that's been a big push for a lot of teams who so much of the revenue that's generated is through ticket sales. And now with so little ticket sales, your team is actually one of the few that's been fortunate enough to have some fans in the building. But even being said, a lot of live shows, pregame shows coming from in the stadium to help people feel a little bit more of the hype of game day. Despite the fact that they can't be there, how does a cloud-based workflow like Sony see helping support the live efforts that other elements of your department are hoping to accomplish?
Yeah, we were really lucky to even send our radio team. We were one of, I believe, 6 teams to even send, Mike Keith and the rest of that team to the games to actually call those, let alone our pregame show that he hosts for us as well. So we were able to do these live look-ins, and those were done live, but we were still getting clips that we could embed as we repost that from our live shooter on the field. So that was really key to having that available. And I mean, even so much on the social media aspect, to pushing all that content out, having that come as quickly as possible was definitely, it was very important. And even once the pandemic hit, we were doing our virtual draft party. All of that content was created by editors at home, pushing that back to us. And then we were making edits within the actual draft as we were making our selections and then pushing those out. So those would be coming over in media boxes and pulling those down and then putting them into, the live broadcast as we push that out, on the social media platform. So several aspects of that, of the live side of it were very important for us to use this platform.
Sure. And Chris, for the Patriots, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys weren't able to have any fans at all during the entire season, correct? At your home games at Gillette?
Yeah, no fans were allowed at Gillette this year.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I thought so. So live, obviously, ultra important for you guys. So it's easy to think about these workflows and how they help support content creation across the board, but live specifically, how does it fit for you guys?
And one thing that helped us this year, especially with Sony C, was as we were at home filming pregame and whatnot, our editors that were capturing live stuff on the back end of it were able to shoot me a text or a call or get in touch with me somehow and say, listen, we could use a shot of this, we could use a shot of that as we're going through the thing to put the piece together so we could get it out that much quicker. So that was definitely something that helped. And then for the one person that was able to travel on the road, shooting arrivals and the same sort of thing coming back to us, we were able to again turn around edits like that so much faster than we were able to in the past. And we're looking ahead, taking some of what Brian was talking about for scrums, should they return, something like that to get that stuff back out would be incredible for us. Instead of having to send out our footage through a TVU, have someone back here to receive it and then record it and then get that up onto our servers. So definitely looking forward to using it as a centralized space for a lot of our stuff.
Yeah. Well, we'll definitely be looking at the future very soon. And I got a couple more questions for these guys. For all of you in the audience, please continue to send your questions in using the Q&A function, and we'll certainly get the opportunity to get to those in probably the next 10 minutes or so. But one thing I did want to ask you before we start putting, taking out the crystal balls and prognosticating and all that kind of stuff, is I'd like to talk to you about your editors. I mean, a lot of times you can throw in a new workflow like this, and it can end up being difficult to learn. It can end up being cumbersome, and some people just don't use it, and that buy-in just isn't there. I'm wondering from your perspectives, and maybe Chris Cruz from CBS will start with you. How do your editors feel about this? I mean, a lot of people are working from home. They don't even have to go in the office. It must be nice to be able to pop this stuff up and feel like you can do your job and not be limited in this environment. But at the end of the day, the buy-in good?
So yeah, it was for our more intuitive and more tech savvy editors, it was great, right? They loved it. The power it possessed, the collaboration, to be able to upload, download, and the simplicity of the GUI, right? I mean, it's one of the best GUIs I've seen for any type of media asset or centralized asset location. So it was really good. But then you had some of the editors, which I'm not going to lie, that had 100 meg up and down, and they're like, "Oh, this thing is slow. It sucks." And it's just like, well, you're only at local speed, right? We all know that as we're in the industry. So it's like, oh, I took 3 hours to download this. Well, you don't have any bandwidth to do so. So you're at the mercy of the local data. So once we got through those early bumps and tried to explain to people and had our editors bump up their data at their local, whether it be their home or some type of facility, it was awesome, right? They loved it. They took to it. The live collaboration, which I keep hitting on, was a major tool for us. And the editors love the fact that, oh my goodness, anything my note that a production person wrote, it was live, it popped up. All right, I see exactly what you're talking about. I'll put that here. And you tandem that with being on Zoom and doing all those things. It was awesome. And the fact that all they had to do was just upload, and as simple as clicking on this link, and I can just do this, and I can leave, and I can go pop a beer now while I'm done with my edit. Even better, right? So we know how our editors are. They want it simple. They want to spend most of their time creating beautiful pieces and not having to worry about the workflow. And this did all that for them.
Yeah, I think it was around last March when we all learned just how crappy a lot of our at-home upload speeds were, and we had to make some calls real quick. That's where you make those calls, right? And you're like, well, I'm not going to, I work for the Patriots, whatever. I'm just saying, and our guy, if you could hook us up with some better, when you call up your local cable operator. But Chris from the Patriots, and then Brian, feel free to jump in after that. Kind of acceptance and buy-in from your entire staff of editors. How was that process? Training people on a new system is always tough, but how was this able to kind of seamlessly work in, and how do your editors feel about using it?
Sure. Well, I guess speaking as an editor who does edit with the system, and our social team is the people that have been integrated so far with it. They all love it. It's pretty easy to use. It was easy to onboard them. And honestly, it's the buy-in's great. And so like I said, we're looking hopefully to use this in the future for all of our productions, for all of our footage, whether it's in the field, getting it back to the cloud and whatnot. It's been great. And I personally like it as an editor because I'm the person that sets the cameras up, gets it going, and comes back. And so just having that whole workflow and the functionality of it just be seamless. I mean, there's nothing better than that. So
Brian, how about you?
Yeah. I haven't heard any major negative comments about the platform, and that's a big positive thing from my perspective, because we had a lot of growing pains when we had the physical storage, because you were, at least with the structure how we were doing and sharing a full project files. I mean, you have the stacking of multiple clips. I mean, you just saw the Derrick Henry stiff arm, and that's probably replicated right now in Sony C 150 times across projects from all 7 of our editors. And within that, it only takes up that single use space within the actual count of the cloud storage. So that is a huge benefit, at least in our current workflow and how we share project files. And I mean, just to go back, and we were online probably with, the first 50 terabytes of our system within 2 weeks of us deciding, okay, we need to go full cloud. We're not getting back into the facility. We had just begun a facility renovation as well, which is ongoing right now. So we're not going to get back into the facility probably until, middle of the season this year. So we're like, this was a thing where we had to, adapt and be ready for a change. And with the editors and then buying in, they love the Adobe. We're an Adobe Suite house, so they really love that integration. It's been working really well for them, and we've decided to start sharing this across a broader spectrums of our organization. So currently, our football video team is starting to log a lot of their footage into the cloud and utilize that resource. Our photography team, which is fantastic, and you saw a lot of that in the reel as well from Donald Page and his staff. And as we're doing that, he's building this up to now be his cloud storage on top of distribution to media outlets and media melts that we've started to provide. So it really has made it really simple for us to grow, and with its ease of use. I haven't heard us say like, oh, are we going to replace it or are we going to go back? I don't think there is a time where we will go back. We're leaning into it more. We're going to do the Memnon side of it and dump all of our legacy footage on there. And we're going to have, a permanent cloud archive for the foreseeable future.
That's awesome. Yeah. And Travis, real quickly, just to kind of put a bow on this one, I could only imagine the challenges that you would deal with being kind of the central point of the conference office. You probably send out an email being like, we're going to start doing this now. And then you hit send, and then you just wait for the telephone to ring from somebody to be like, we're doing what?
Well,
so how do you get that kind of a conference wide buy-in?
The response was, don't go back. So it was pretty easy. It was realistically, like, we had people like taking down like, hey, I need clips from this game, taking down whole games, taking down whole melts, not even sure what they're getting until they have it completely downloaded. So for them, like, it increased efficiency, workflow is great. So everyone has said, hey, don't go back. And actually the nice thing too is having the archive feature in there too, is that, people are able to go back and, hey, look, I'm looking for the melt from the 2019, Texas State, Louisiana game, and they can go there and easily get it and show what happened last year. So it's just great to have something, centralized that's easy to manipulate.
Sure. All right. Well, we're going to kind of get close to wrapping up here. Again, for everyone in the audience, keep sending your questions in. We'll gather them up, and these gentlemen will be happy to participate and answer some of the questions that you have. We'll also be joined a little bit later by a member of the Sony team. We'll be joined by David Rosen. He's the VP of Cloud Applications and Services for Sony Imaging Products and Solutions Americas. So if you have any specific questions tailored at the C platform, he'll be more than happy to answer those. But first, guys, before we kind of advance to the audience Q&A here, I'd like to get your thoughts on, obviously this has entered your workflows very nicely and it stayed. And the $1 million question that everyone always wants to talk about now is, okay, what stays because it's actually making things better, and what will you be more than happy to get back to once we can go back to having full stadiums and a regular old truck compound, Chris, at a big event. A lot of you have said some things may never go back. And some things will. So maybe we'll start with Chris Cruz on this one. I know it's a really big question, and there's and maybe it depends on the property. But when you look ahead, having become so successful within this platform and having the cloud change so much of how you do, and having able, we were joking about this in the SVG offices where there were so many workflows, whether it's remote production or cloud-based workflows, where we'd always say, yeah, but you wouldn't do the Super Bowl this way. You might do everything else, but you wouldn't do the Super Bowl this way. And then you guys just did the Super Bowl that way. It may not be the ideal way to do it, but you were able to do it and do it pretty damn successfully. So when you look ahead, remote production, these kind of hybrids that we talked about earlier, are they here to stay? What's staying, and what do you see potentially maybe going back to the way it was prior to all this?
So I'm going to fight with my last dying breath that everything stays. I don't want to go back to the office. I don't want to have commute one way, right? I don't want to have to travel, whether it's week to week or to all these big events. So I am with you 100%, Brandon. The way we just did Super Bowl, I see us continuing to be a hybrid solution until everything gets onboarded into the cloud. Right now, where are we in the industry where you've got switching that's in the cloud, and SDI? What replaces SDI, right? As far as a video signal, until all those things fall into place, I don't think everything's going to go in the cloud. But for our workflow, for acquisition, distribution, review and approve, all the tools are here and they're going to stay. I don't plan on dismissing them or trying to reinvent the wheel. We're here to stay. Excuse me. We did the Super Bowl. We got great results. Editors are in, production's in. I mean, that's the toughest sell, right? We got into a little bit on the production side or the editor side. Production is who you got to get to buy in, and with the SVG platform, they bought in rather easily, and we don't plan on changing a thing.
Right. Brian, you've already talked about a lot of things that you think are going to stay. I'm sure there are things you'll happily see you go away, as far as the tier system, being able to get more cameras on the sidelines, things like that. What stays, and what would you be more than happy to see go back to the way it was?
I mean, yeah, more than happy to see, Todd and Bill get back on the field. Like not having those guys, it's tough. I mean, we do everything that we can with the resources that we're given, and I mean, safety for the health of our fans and our players is always more paramount than anything else. So we're going to abide by the league rules, and as it progresses into things, we have to adapt and overcome. But I know those guys are eager to get back on the field and continue shooting and actually producing content that they feel is achieving of what we're trying to do in Nashville at the Tennessee Titans. But I could see us, leaning more into a lot of this. There's still a couple of outlying programs and systems that we're currently using for approvals and distribution. And I think we started to train even our local media outlets on how they're going to start receiving a lot of our content. We're trying to change a lot of the paradigms on how our press conferences look and how they actually receive some of these things. So if we could keep taking those evolutionary steps on, getting everything into this one solution prior to us even coming back into the new training facility, I think it will, pay dividends in the long run for us.
Yeah. Chris, similar for you?
Yeah, I mean, almost the exact same thing. We're going to lean more into this, and we are in the very beginning stages of using this. Hearing what everyone's doing, I mean, we're super excited to kind of take some from here, some from there, and really make the Sony XC experience and to dive into the whole thing and make it part of our everyday workflow. We've been using it just for game days and some remote projects, some things that are time sensitive that need to get back to an editor ASAP. But I mean, I can see us definitely diving into the future and getting all of our stuff, up in the clouds, that we don't have to make the trip to Gillette if you live further away, to download footage from our archive or whatnot, and then go back and work on a project, stuff like that. So I'm super excited to get back on the field and shoot. Stuck in the operational zone this year was challenging, and trying to find the longest lens possible to get the right shot. But, I can see us adding more cameras and having more people linked to the cloud, so that we have our editors have more content that they can pull from for social, and just kind of making the most of our Sony C experience for sure.
Sure. Yeah, I know I don't have to preach this to any of you guys on the call, but when you work in live sports or sports at all, work-life balance is a challenge, and I think that's something that you can't understate in these circumstances either. We could talk about efficiency and creating content and engagement and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, this stuff like this also makes your work-life balance a little better. It helps your staff from burning out when they can, like you said, Chris, not have to burn 3 hours of their day trying to just get to and from your facility. It's a huge factor when people can feel like they can maybe have a little more time home that they normally would have in the past. Travis, I don't know if you have anything you feel like you want to add as far as what maybe would you'd like to see go back, if anything, or do you feel like you're going full steam ahead with this new world that we're kind of living in?
Well, first of all, I'll leave it to the smart guys, to talk first. So thanks for making me last, but I can learn from them first. But, the one thing I want to say is it really, the C Cloud and, the remote part of it really makes things super easy for us. I mean, we're barely scratching the surface of everything that it can do. The video review aspect of it. Our NFL friends are talking about how they're doing the auto uploads into the cloud. We haven't even touched that yet because I'm afraid I'm going to break something. And we're looking forward to that, So I think there's a lot of things that we can, improve upon and make more efficient, but I'm certainly looking forward to, seeing more people in stadiums and in arenas. I'm just looking forward to that as well. And having and allowing our, allowing our campuses to be able to, have more, personnel on the sideline to get that shot, to get that catch. So, looking forward to what the future holds and what we can do to expand our horizons and share more content, with all of our member institutions.
Very cool. All right, gentlemen. Well, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. Before we go and shift to the Q&A portion with the audience here, I guess we'll just kind of wrap up with this one question. This is broad. This can be, this is a total lightning round grab bag question. Take it in any direction that you want. We appreciate your insights into cloud-based productions and Sony C specifically. But I'm just kind of curious. This was something that you were able to implement that had really positive impacts on how you work on a day-to-day basis. And now that we've kind of adapted a little bit to the world that we're in, when you look ahead at 2021 and the months that are to come, what's a production development you would love to see happen? And again, I'm kind of curious to see which way you guys go on this, because you could literally go anywhere. Travis, I'll flip it and let you start on this one. So Travis,
this is super scary now. I think I'm really curious, and I know the technology's getting out there. But in terms of like the price point and what it might look like in the future is really just being able to have control operatives being REMI, and how do we do that at a campus level that is efficient and cost effective. I think that's something I'd be curious that we will see develop. I'm just curious how far away it is. Obviously, I know the technology is out there now and we've seen it used across other sports leagues, but I could just really see a point where we're not jamming in 5 people into a trailer on campus, but maybe we could have them set up on different places on campus or things like that. That's what I'm curious about, what that looks like in terms of affordability in the future.
For sure. No, that's really great. Chris Gogolos, what do you think? What's on your wish list for 2021?
Wow. Again, that's a tough question to ask. I guess if we go back to, if we're talking about Sony C and the way that we use it, I'm super excited for the proxy technology to get up higher than what it is right now and get that really nice, crisp HD stuff that we can use for social for the future. But I mean, what we have right now is usable, it's good, and we like it, and it's quick. And just looking forward to that technology, hopefully catching up to what it's putting out.
Cool. Brian, how about you?
Well, as we're looking to likely upgrade to some FX9s here in the future, I want to see some higher frame rate in the proxies as well, just to kind of jump on Chris's bandwagon. But I'm again super thrilled with everything we'd be able to push out from the cloud so far, and with this product as it's enhanced our content. But I think that's the one wish that we really would have as we're continuing to use this, and as things return to normality. We'd like to see that, be a feature set added in the future.
Yeah, that sounds like it could really be a really, really nice ad. And Christopher Cruz, lastly, take us home.
Well, since I'm a client, I have such a huge wish list, right? So let's just start with the ability to stream in, right? So I want to talk streaming in, live streams, putting on graphics, publishing out to social media, right? So I'm sure C's going to be working on those capabilities. Maybe one pool, right? So we're all talking about, Travis, you were talking about sharing the melts, and Brian and Chris, you're talking about sharing out footage. At this point, we're not restricted to behind our own firewalls on our own company storage, right? So now everything's in the cloud. It can be permission-based. Who can access what? Will Sony C have a global pool where, hey, Brian may want some extra footage that we have at CBS. Me want some stuff from Chris in New England. We may want some stuff from Travis, right? So what's the next step of evolution of sharing content? And I know there's a whole legality part of it, but is the technical aspect going to be there for us to do that within C? Who knows?
Yeah, really, really interesting stuff. Gentlemen, really appreciate you sharing your experiences with this, your early expertise in it. I'm sure if we get together 12 months from now, you'll probably know infinitely more than you do today. But really appreciate you joining us, and hope you can stick around for some Q&A here with the audience.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Brandon.
We're currently joined on the program by David Rosen from Sony. David, thank you so much for being here. We'll also welcome back in Brian, Chris, and Chris. Travis from Sunbelt sends his apologies. He had to dump off there and wasn't able to stick around. It's a tournament season. It's championship week, if you hadn't heard. So Travis has got some big eggs to crack. So we appreciate him joining us for the portion of the program where he could. Gentlemen, thank you all so much for being here. We've had some great questions come in from the audience through the course of our presentation here. David, I just kind of wanted to start with you, though, to kind of welcome you into the conversation. You got to hear a couple of those things from some of these gentlemen about some of the stuff that's on their wish list, the different things that they're thinking of. You know, you get a good product into a good client's hands and they immediately go, you know what I'd like to be able to do with this? I'd like to do blank. And you go, okay, all right. And that feedback is valuable to you guys. But when you hear some of the things that these guys are talking about, what they want to be able to do in the future, any responses to anything that they shared along the way?
Yeah, everything except what Cruz said, we absolutely want to do. But no, this is exactly the feedback that makes us better. So, you know, that's how we decide what to put into C. So this is so valuable, and everything, you know, we captured everything that came out of this as far as, you know, the ability to do live streaming. You know, I'm happy to say, Chris, that we can support today, being able to get HLS and RTMP streams pushed directly from an encoder into C, so we can capture that part today. The higher resolution on the proxies. So good thing. It's funny that you have to find these things out in webinars, but we can actually do that today. So we can turn that on for you guys. Just reach out to, you know, Michael Potts or anybody on our customer success team, and we'll turn those on. And the cost thing that our friend Mr. Llewellyn mentioned, you know, we can talk through all of those different issues. You know, we have people that use just a teeny tiny bit of C, and anywhere from like $1,000 a month. And then we have people that use it for significantly larger volumes of content, and, you know, the prices tier accordingly. So we never want that to be a reason that people don't take advantage of the efficiencies. But yeah, appreciate the comments. There's a lot of new good stuff coming on the roadmap here soon, which should, you know, hopefully improve some of these workflows better. Oh, and Brian, higher frame rate. So we will support high frame rate proxies as well.
Fantastic.
It's just a big switch. Someone has to flip somewhere in your facility, right? Just
Exactly.
just flick it up. Well, there's been some fantastic questions coming in from the audience throughout the course of the program. For those of you who are still here, well over 100 and almost 130 of you, we appreciate you sticking it around. And please continue to send them through. I'll kind of start to make my way through them. I have a question from earlier in the show from Aaron Rodenheiser, who asked specifically for Chris, but Chris Cruz, but feel free for any of you guys to kind of jump in. And I appreciate a good organization question because, you know, I've read enough of the Marie Kondo books and watched enough of the home edit episodes to know that, man, organization at the end of the day just makes us all feel better, right? So she would love to know from you, Chris, specifically, what are some of the systems that you've kind of implemented to organize and manage and keep track of everything that this system's coming in? You know, metadata and uniform file types and all those different things are important when you got many people working on a project, probably even more so when you have people working on a project remotely who you aren't sitting down in a room with, having a meeting with in the morning and be like, by the way, guys, we're doing X, Y, Z. What is your kind of chosen system, or the network's chosen system of organizing and managing and keep your head wrapped around all of the content that could be potentially flowing through a system like this?
Yeah, so basically we try and keep stuff down to a unique identifier, right? So basically for one game, we try and marry all the assets and try and involve as much custom metadata for that first time register or upload, so that they all get tagged with as much metadata that they share between all those common assets. And then you kind of enhance after with the stuff that doesn't share as much custom, right? And then the beauty of C, if you want to talk to this specifically to C, is they give you such cool tools such as creating workspaces, or even the folder directories within a workspace allows you to maintain organization through all the different videos, files. And David, correct me if I'm wrong, you can upload pretty much anything. You can have documentations, JPEGs, all that kind of stuff. So it's not just limited to video files. So it's the beauty of it is you can track it all internal, all yourself, right? So how you want it organized is how you can lay out the workspace, how you can lay out the folder directories within the workspace, how you can view lists, you know, whether you do the thumbnail preview, all that kind of stuff, right? So all that is built within, and I'm sure Dave's appreciating the plug here, all that's built within C to do that. So that's how we found it. We have probably 12 different workspaces, and that's what the doctor had told me early. Don't be scared to create workspaces to help keep things organized. So we've got sports ENG, sports network ENG, we got big three, we got broadcast ops, we've got numerous amounts of workspaces just so that we can keep it organized.
Very cool. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the element about pictures too, because that came up in a panel that I was moderating last week during our team summit, where naturally we talk about video a lot, and those are big video files. But as far as how letting your media management system better serve the entire organization, like we talked about in the panel earlier, digital media is being called upon even more so when that ticket revenue number wasn't there during your previous season of whatever it may be. And pictures was becoming a huge factor because that's stuff that's easily usable for ticket sales, hospitality, other kinds of customer service media. Sometimes they just want really good shots of players and stuff like that. And a lot of people are accounting for that as well. So Chris, from the Patriots, on a game day, you're running at a mile a minute. And even during a regular week, you're probably running at a mile a minute. So how do you guys organize and kind of keep a bow around all these things so that everyone kind of can just like look at it and know, all right, I know what I'm working with here?
Yeah, so we have a media manager that handles all that stuff. So for what it's worth, someone else is in charge of getting the whole thing, top to bottom. But for us socially, everything's just kind of taken in on and put on a drive. We have, a large drive here. We have another one stored somewhere in the building that I haven't even seen yet. But we've been starting to use C a lot more now. So I'll come in, if I go shoot some sort of community event, I'll come in, I'll dump that on our hard drive here. And then I'll get it in a media box and get it out to, our social team. They can take a look at it, or a different editor can pull down and edit stuff off that. So we're still, in the infancy of our C usage here so far. So we're, like I said, we're super excited to start using it even more. Like before we weren't even using media boxes. So now all of a sudden we're starting to use more stuff to get it out to more people. Especially I know Chris talked about it, but you can like pull a certain piece of a clip down instead of having to download an entire file. Like that's huge.
Yeah, sure. Brian, anything different for you guys?
We use the similar MAM style folder structure for all of our clips when they're coming in. So once we relink the proxies that are coming up from the FS7 by uploading those to C to get the full high res files up. Following that, we then have them just upload their cards completely to C, and then everybody can be pulling off of it. So we'll dump in, and then they'll review and actually add the metadata after the fact already once it's on C.
And also, we don't use it, and I know David will be mad if I didn't mention this. You can create your custom schema, right? So you can add categories and then enter in values and build out your metadata schema within there. We don't do that today because, to Chris's point, as much as we use it, we're still in the infancy stage of all these different tools, right? So that's something that we're going to look to take advantage of in the near future, because I know someone had mentioned metadata earlier too. So
sure. This question from Ana Palacios, I believe, is targeted mostly towards the team. So Brian and Chris, talking about staying on that theme of game day. How do you guys kind of work through this after you shoot? And before you upload the clips to C, are you guys syncing the audio in camera? Are you sending the audio in proxies to the editors? Can you kind of explain if there's anything special that's done there along the way, especially when you're on the field in a game?
Yeah, from our standpoint, we have NAT mics on their cameras that they're embedding as they're shooting, as well as some Electro and Q5X transmitters for on player mics during the game. So all of that's embedded and is going up through the proxy if we're utilizing that part of the function. But for most of the high frame rate stuff, I mean, the audio is syncing up when you're going to that style of photography.
Got it.
Yeah, pretty similar, same thing. Our editor is still working on linking proxy. He'll build out sights and sounds with proxies, and then go link the media afterwards and stuff. And then if I'm shooting high frame rates, that audio is not going to be going through the camera. But I think it's pretty much the same thing as Brian said.
Sure. And a similar question, not a similar question, but another question for Brian and Chris from the team side, coming from Philip from 7-1 Sports in Germany. For the transmission, I guess you could call it a silver lining that for Chris, one of the benefits of not having fans in the stands is now you're not competing with 65,000 cell phone signals that are also flying around the stadium on a given game day. we obviously want to get fans back in the stands. When you get fans back in the stands, how will the return of crowds impact this workflow in any way? And, when you're talking about just shooting stuff up, like literally from your camera on the sideline up into the cloud, that connectivity for either of you, Brian, you got to experience it in both circumstances with full stadium and with minimal crowds. How does that impact all this? And is it, are you happy with its reliability?
Yeah, we didn't have any problems. We were using LTE MiFis that are attached straight to the FS7. So during the 2019 season, when there was, sellout in crowds, we didn't really have any issues. You would run into some of the typical cellular restrictions once you get into the bowels of the stadiums, especially other, more archaic variants. That gets a little tougher, but we'll just interact. And I think Chris can attest to this. Once you talk to and you find the right persons at the other stadiums and vendor or venues, you can facilitate getting a network cable and actually get stabbed in during the press conference rooms or any other rooms that you may need. So that's fairly easy on that side of it. But when we're uploading just the scrum, never really had an issue over an LTE MiFi.
Got it.
Saying we used LTE MiFis this year and they worked just great across the country in different various places, and like you said, could be a dungeon-esque sort of place that as long as you get a signal out there, it could work. So we had no problem. We'll see what happens when we have 68,000 people here this year, but if that happens, but looking forward to seeing how that works.
Sure. Well, we're close to running out of time here, already a little bit over the hour we wanted to go. I'll try to get to a couple more questions here. I sincerely apologize if I don't get to yours if it has come in. But if you want to drop me a line at brandon@sportsvideo.org and you really have a question that you'd like to get answered, I can certainly relay it to these gentlemen. And I'm sure, David, you're always open to answering questions, especially from potential people who might be interested in doing more with C. So I'm sure if you got any specific questions about how the C performs, David is definitely available to answer any of your questions as well. So again, apologize if I can't get to everybody here, but I'm going to try to pick off a couple more before we wrap up for the day. This is a really, really big picture one and has less to do specifically with this. And, depending on how long we go on this one, this might be the last one, but I think it's a good one. We're talking a lot about, obstacles that you overcome and solutions that were made along the way. And during this pandemic, we've seen some incredible innovation from folks just like you on the call and folks in the audience who have done incredible things to overcome at a time when you were just thrown into an area where you never thought you would be. What obstacle, if any, is still out there for you that you're still searching for an answer for? Is there any really big obstacle that you're like, man, and are you at that point now where you're giving up because hopefully we'll be back to normal in 6 months anyway? When you look at a post-pandemic world, is there something that's still a block in your way, a big thing that stands out to you in your mind? And Brian, see you nodding your head, so maybe I'll go to you. Is there something that you still are really hoping to overcome, and what is that thing?
Well, it's when we move back and move more towards a hybrid world. It's kind of the fear of how is that going to function, and what are we doing with the current LTO system and the MAM storage that we still have on site. So it's reinterfacing with a new cloud philosophy and also migrating and starting to digitize all of our game footage and going that direction. I think that's the biggest thing that we haven't tackled yet, is what is our final step of transition once we get out of the work from home style. I mean, we could, who knows, we could stay hybrid for the foreseeable future and have secondary edit stations and let them come into our mastering suites and finish there. But it's going to be a complicated readjustment of now everything's here in the cloud. Are we going to be uploading everything to the cloud and then pulling back down, or working more locally? I think that's the next thing that we got to work through, as a team, and then with Sony to kind of understand how the solution could work best for us.
Yeah, I 100% hear you on that, because we all knew how to operate in the world before the pandemic. And as scary and as world twisting as it was, in all virtual world, you can kind of wrap your head around that. It's like, all right, there's a nice box for me to work in. Is it limited? Yeah, but at least I know where the walls are. The hybrid world is, I feel like, how are you going to be able to do all that stuff, afford all that stuff, coordinate all that stuff? That seems way more scary than the the all virtual world that we got thrust into about a year ago. Christopher Cruz, any major, you're heading into another Final Four like we were talking about earlier. Any major obstacles when you think about going back to where we were pre-pandemic as much as we can? Are there any big questions that you're still trying to find answers to?
I mean, it's all pandemic related, right? So at these different venues, we're going to have different tiers. Tier 1 people can't see tier 2 people. Tier 2 people can't see tier 3. And we have what's called a confidential shoot, where shooters are going around similar to what Brian and Chris's teams do to get that behind the scenes kind of stuff. And how are you going to get that stuff uploaded so that we can get it centralized? Because hotels are 5 megabits. Some of the venues, you're not going to get very good speed. So we're trying to figure out, and it's going to be to a point where, as Brian said, the LTE dongles may be the solution, or air cards or something to that effect. But that's what's been haunting me right now. And we've had nonstop meetings on how we're going to get all these E&G shooters, their material up so that it can be accessed, because we have clouds and edits in the cloud, we have edits in the BC, and then we also have like at-home edits where local machines are being used. So trying to find out all that and get it done for Final Four, and obviously get through March Madness in itself.
For sure, yeah. Chris, from the Patriots, anything different from you?
Honestly, everyone kind of mentioned everything already. Just basically, trying to figure out when we do go back, if we do go back, is it hybrid? Is it full? Are we, taking more of our stuff and putting it up in the cloud, or are we going to work off more local storage here and use that only for shoots that are happening outside of Gillette and whatnot? So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely, we're all going through right now trying to figure out what the world is going to look like in the next 6 months. So, just trying to tackle it as it gets here.
Sure. And David, from your perspective, as you're talking to prospective clients or your current clients, whoever it may be, how are you seeing their questions change as people start to see a light at the end of the tunnel? Are they starting to plan in a different way than maybe they were when it was May or June last year, when we're like, oh God, this is going to be a lot longer than we thought it was going to be. Now, as we start to hopefully see some kind of a light at the end of the tunnel, are there questions and concerns changing?
Well, there's been a lot of additional questions around, hey, listen, I love that I'm getting my content into a central location that people can get access to, but what if I want to edit it there? And so there's been a lot of interesting conversations with customers, many of whom have started to try this, of accessing the content from C directly from an edit instance that's running in the cloud already. So there's a lot of people running POCs right now. I know, some people, maybe some on this call, are actually doing that in real production environments. So there's a lot of interest in how can we make that much more seamless. And then the second question that we've been getting a lot recently is, I put all of that content up there. I let people get access to it. Should I leave it there, and can I leave it there? And so that's where a lot of conversations around archiving have come in. So a lot of people are starting to consider, the cloud makes a lot of sense for me, not just for these transient workflows, but leave it there, push it down to really, low cost and reliable storage, so that you can always get access to it, just by clicking on it, restoring it, and doing what you need to do. So a lot of questions around archive, a lot of questions around how do we make editing in the cloud, much more of a reality.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's really good. Actually, one of the last questions we'll get to, it's kind of an odd place to leave it, but Nathan Bettisworth sent a few really good questions over, and I don't want to ghost him. So he asks a little bit about archive. How does it fit into your asset archive strategy? Do you archive footage, use Sony C as a DAM? Have you ever, or do you intend to use the C live stream functionality for HLS or SMTP? And are you doing any cloud transcoding in Sony C? Or just yeses and nos kind of down that list? Chris Cruz, what do you think?
So lucky for me, working closely with David Rosen and Robert and the rest of the guys on the NavX side, we're looking forward to the release of the MSD, the microservices integration, so that we can go ahead and use both, but under like one hood, for lack of better term, so that we can get all the different services that NavX offer and Sony C and apply it to just one use case, right? So that's the beauty of it, that we've had at length conversations where David Rosen and I have that love-hate relationship where I'm just nonstop with the questions, right? So that is going to be our plan, right? So anything that we need to get to the cloud centralized, it'll be triggered workflow through microservices and up there. It just doesn't make sense for us as CBS to kind of have everything right now in the cloud. We're going to eventually start that archive process. I think Brian is starting that with their LTO and all that. We're going to do the same concept, but as of right now, it's all going to be, we're going to utilize both services from NavX and C. As far as transcoding, I literally just texted David Rosen last week about beefing up those transcoders, because we'd love to do more transcodes in the cloud. So we're all in the same boat here. This is awesome that we're all thinking alike, but that's what I have as far as us. What's up, Nathan?
Anybody else have anything, or is that pretty comprehensive there?
Yeah, kind of the same thing here. We use the live transcode a lot, especially for our full game clips, game records, when we're supplying those back to like older footage going to alumni players. So it's a lot easier to send them that. And even when you make a media box, you can allow them to actually use your proxy service. So they don't want the original file; they want something smaller, or you're just trying to hit something quickly in email. We use that a couple times, especially for the review side of things. I already touched on how LTO, I see this could replace that for us long term, and we're already using the digitization service of Memnon to get all of our tapes and reels onto the cloud.
Great. All right, well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us and for being a part of this webinar. It was fantastic getting to talk to you, meet some of you, and really we've all learned a lot from all of your experiences here, and we really appreciate you sharing your experiences with our audience. And David, thanks so much for joining us here at the latter portion of the program, and appreciate getting the opportunity to work with you guys at Sony. So thanks, guys.
Thank you, Brandon.